Hi, Cass. Fantastic to catch up with you today. So great to see you again.
How you doing, Emily?
Yeah, doing really well, doing really well. I'm actually really excited to hear about your In the Making mentoring program for up and coming artists. It's being launched, but can we just kick off by sharing with our audience about your career, like your musical reputation basically goes before you, working with so many greats in the music industry, and kind of, what have been your outstanding career moments so far?
Right. Well, I started in a band called Quite Sane when I was at school. We did most of the clubs in London, like the Jazz Cav. The Orange was around at that time, and there was loads of them. The Vox, Dingwalls. There was just loads. All of them we had done at a young age, and we won the Capital Radio Band of the Year as well. We went to Barcelona to do our first kind of European tour kind of thing, and that's where I started. And then I went on to touring with a guy called Keziah Jones, and I toured with him for over 6 years. It was really good. It was really a good experience because I went straight into touring with a headline act. So he was a headline, and there was only three musicians: me, the bass player, and Keziah himself. So it's like you've just been thrown into the midst of it. Even though I'd been doing I've had experience, obviously, touring the London scene. It's different when you go on a stage and there's like 40,000 people watching you, it's completely different. So, but I kind of was, it wasn't hard for me because the music I was playing was really complicated. It was jazz fusion. And even if it was in 4/4, you wouldn't know it was in 4/4. It was that kind of thing. And Keziah Jones was more groove orientated, and it was a mixture of funk and Afrobeat and rock. The thing that was hard, or well, it wasn't hard, but the thing I had to concentrate more on was actually playing with groove. That was the main thing of Keziah's thing. You just got to have the groove. It's got to sound funky. So I had to learn how to play less, basically. Play less and play in the pocket, which was really good. And that's how I prefer to play now. And from that, I started doing this thing because I came back because I was always away in Europe or in the States or whatever, and I wanted to do stuff here. I had nothing in London. So a friend of mine called Jade Richardson asked me to do this thing called I Love Live, which was based in a small club called Sugar Sugar. And I did that, and that's where I met and performed with all the people on the scene, the grime scene. At the time, I met everybody because it was just drums and then whoever came up on the stage. So it was just me and somebody else. And then I'd just play. I would let them do what they're going to do and I'd just join in. Or they would say, I'll play this type of beat and I'll play that type of beat. And then they would just rap or sing or whatever they wanted to do over it. And now I met everybody. And through that, I met Akala 1 week. And then I met Plan B the next week. And then after a month of doing that, I couldn't do that anymore because I was touring with them guys and recording on their albums. So I kind of started with Plan B right from the beginning of from the beginning of his career. We did a lot of shows where it was just me, him on the guitar and him on vocals. And we did a few shows in Europe again, and we did a few shows here. And then the band expanded, and then we started writing, he started writing his first album, Who Needs Actions When You've Got Words. So I played drums on that and did a few things on bits and pieces on that. And then the next album was we actually did Ill Manners before we did The Defamation of Strickland Banks, which was funny because Defamation of Strickland Banks got released first. So we did that, and then that was a hit. Obviously, it went to #1 and stuff. And then I won my Ivor Award from that. And then at the same time, I started playing the streets. So I was doing Plan B and the streets at the same time, which was like a really exciting part of my career because I was just doing 2 headline acts, and sometimes I was doing them on the same day. So I did Glastonbury, and I think it was on the main stage of Plan B. Then I went to the main tent with the streets. So and
high in demand is the bottom line.
You could say that. There was a lot of gigs that doubled up, and then so I was really busy. Around that time, I had the idea for this ITM thing because while I was on tour, lots of just up and coming artists and musicians were like, "How can we work with you? How can we get in the studio with you? How can we do this?" And I was just like, if I'm going to do it, I have to make business sense because obviously it would take a lot of time for me to do it properly. So that's when I just sat down and I because I wanted to do it, but I just wasn't sure how to do it. But I sat down and I wrote a business plan out. I got funded by the Arts Council, and I did my first year of ITM in the making. A few months ago, I got a call from the Ivors. They kind of asked me what I was doing, so I told them about the ITM, and they was like, "Oh, that sounds like something we would like to be a part of." So we talked about it for a little while, and then they said, "All right, we would like to partner with you for your next run." And then they spoke to PPL, and then I got PPL to partner as well. Well, PPL have funded me for the next 3 years, and with 4 artists, so I can have 4 artists a year for now until I get more funding, which I want to do, and get more artists doing it as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And the process of these young people being like guided in is really fantastic. I mean, kind of like, you know, you're talking about your career earlier on, and sort of breaking out initially into the jazz fusion scene, and then in the grime scene as well. Was that like being mentored as well in that situation when you were up and coming, or initially, like for you to get into those situations, for you to get?
That's the problem. I didn't have anybody to mentor me at that time. This is why I wanted to do the ITM, because it was really hard. I was quite fortunate because I was in a band which were quite popular at the time. But even then, it was just hard knowing where to go, what to do, how to get in. I mean, a lot of things, some of it was luck, because I was in the right circle at the time. So then I met the right people to, like, because with Quite Sane and me going to do Keziah Jones, our lawyer was the lawyer for Keziah Jones. So then, and he managed him as well, actually. So that's how I got that gig. And then with Plan B, I mean, I met Jade Richardson, who she works for Island now, but she's the one that found Lady Dynamite. So I knew her actually because she had a girl group. She was in a girl group, and I was going to produce for them. And so I met her years ago. And then all of a sudden, fast forward, but yeah, she's got this position. And then she asked me to do this live thing. And I said, yeah, because I wanted to do something different. And I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to be in London doing things. I didn't know anybody in London because I was always out of the country. And I wanted to be in the country a bit more, because it's just, when you're touring a lot and it's always away from home, it gets a bit taxing. So, and then I was thinking, well, what if that ends? What am I going to do? I will have nobody. So I kind of stopped in the middle and then found something else. Well, it found me. So I was quite fortunate.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of people kind of like refer to like portfolio careers in the land of music, where you sort of like, you're doing one specific, you know, maybe sort of a specific band or a specific performing, but also opening up your opportunities and sort of broadening who you're working with, how you're working with different people. Kind of, how do you feel about that kind of thing?
I mean, when we was in Quite Sane, our manager never let us work with anybody else. Like, so Courtney Pine asked us to work with him. I said no. I was just crazy. I don't know why I did that. A guy called Steve Williamson asked me to work with him. I said no, but then I did end up working with Steve a little bit later. But then it kind of wasn't my decision, because we was managed by a manager. So he was, and it kind of worked for us in a way, because people couldn't get to us. We were these young musicians, and everybody wanted to take us and implement us into their bands. And our manager was like, no, you lot keep together as a unit. And I think it worked for us in a way. So it wasn't all bad. But then I think the first person we did end up working with was a jazz musician from the States called Greg Osby. And it was more because it was more of a hip hop thing at that time, because when I was younger, I also did this thing called Apricot Jam, which was basically a hip hop event, a live hip hop event. And then people would come. We had different sections to this event. We had a Bring Your Beat event where someone would come out of the audience and come on stage and beatbox their beat. And then we would make up this whole music for them, and then they would rap over it. There was a Knowns Beat section where we would learn like beats from different genres of music and play them, and then rappers again would come up. And then you had the featured artists. So I met a lot of, it was funny, like it's through these, like I did Apricot Jam before I did I Love Live. But them kind of events were the events where I met loads of people. And I suppose, you know, that was how I got to work with different people, because there were so many different people coming through. So I became a name, people knew who I was. So yeah. I suppose doing them kind of, it wasn't a jam session, but even jam sessions, if you do them, you meet a lot of people. You never know who's going to be there. So that's how I kind of was able to branch out and do all these different things.
Yeah, totally. And is it right to say that supporting the music community is important to you? So kind of like looking at the history behind In the Making, that grew out of you experiencing the music scene and thinking, how can I give people the support and the sort of broader knowledge that I would have liked to have had as well when I was starting out?
To be honest, yes, but what I was terrified of having to be put in that position because I wasn't used to it. So what helped me big time with that is a friend of mine was doing workshops, like musical workshops in schools. So I went and did a load of, because like I was terrified of having to stand up in front of kids and explain things. It was the most terrifying thing for me. But that really, it developed my communication skills. It really got me out of my comfort zone. So I did that, and I did lots of music workshops in like loads of schools around the UK. Then we ended up going to Hong Kong, and then I used to fly there every year actually. But yeah, that really, just being in that position where you have to stand up in front of a class of 30 or more kids and explain things, not just about drums, but just about music production, all kinds of things to do with music. And then they would ask you a lot of questions about, what is it like to be on tour? They just ask you about things to do with your career. And I saw how beneficial it was for them, like just to because a lot of them wanted to do what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so they could ask all the questions and they would get inspired by the feedback I would give them and stuff. And then so I really got into the whole thing of like just helping other younger people. And then it really became a passion of mine because I was like, I didn't have anything like this when I was younger. There was no one really to direct me. And I'm at a certain place in my career. I need to start giving back. So like I said, I just sat down and wrote out a business plan on how I could do it. It was a long struggle, but it was so worth it. It was really worth it.
And I think sometimes in life there's the things that you struggle for that are more important because you kind of have that focus and you have that determination. So the people In the Making, I mean, this is a year-long course. It's a massive deal. It's full-on support in them really developing their work. Kind of what kind of things can we expect to hear like over the year course and stuff? What kind of things can we expect?
The course is about getting 4 talented underprivileged artists and then finding out what kind of music they want to do. I work with them on 2 tracks, producing 2 tracks, songwriting with them as well. I bring in some songwriters and we work with them like that. I bring some live musicians and they get to work with them on 2 tracks and mix and master both of the tracks. But then it doesn't stop there because I think that making the music is the easiest part. What's hard is actually getting the music out or doing gigs with the music that you've got. I've got a branding marketing team that they go and have masterclasses with. PRS have agreed to do a master class of them. Spotify have agreed to do a masterclass of them. We set up some live events for them to perform the music that they've been working on with me. A lot of these kids their socials are quite on point. We kind of go through all that and aligning all their socials and their websites together and things like that and just giving them advice. When they're working with the songwriters, a lot of the songwriters that they're working with, they can mentor them basically. So they're getting mentored throughout the whole thing. Even when they come into the studio and I'm doing stuff on the computer and I'll be telling them the techniques I'm using and so I want them to go away with a full understanding because even though you might not want to be a producer, it's always good to know what they do. Do you know what I mean? So like, for example, if you're recording vocals and the producer turns around and says, all right, can you track that vocal? They know what that means, or double track that vocal. They know what them terms are. They get used to the whole terminology of everything in the studio. So yeah. And if when they go to work with new people, they can say, "Oh, I want to track that vocal," and they know them things. Some of these kids don't know about any of that stuff, and these are all things that hopefully they'll learn from doing this with me. And we're just going to have fun, and they'll come out of 2 products
and a massively sort of round experience of the different areas and the different kind of roles that you mix with when you are, you know, because like when if you're a vocalist, if you're a composer, you don't just mix with vocalists and composers, you mix with the band, you mix with the producers, you mix with the engineers, you mix with so many different people, and kind of like understanding that whole process, how everything fits together, will give them the sort of professional knowledge. You know,
and also confidence to speak up, you know, not just sit in the studio and think, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, so I better not say anything. No, you do know what you're doing. You know, you just have to know how to explain it to whoever you're working with. If you're working with the engineer, how to explain what you want to do. And they'll be in a real life situation of doing all that stuff. And when I did it the first time, by the end of it, these kids knew exactly what they wanted and how to ask for it, you know, and they took it onto a big level, because they got their tracks, and some of them did videos and released their tracks, and you know, they actually did something with the stuff that they did here.
In process on the job is always a way. There's a textbook is one thing, but sitting next door to somebody who goes, this is it, this is how it goes, this is how you get the sound, or this is how you identify your sound, or this is how you can create the sound that's in your mind. That is, it's a faster learning, sort of richer learning curve.
It is.
Going forward, we'll dot back in and we'll check out what's going on with In the Making. We're really looking forward to hearing. And going forward, like with your stuff, like is there, with your writing and your beat making and stuff, is there kind of like, can you give us a heads up about anything maybe next year? Any sort of thoughts, plans or ideas?
To be honest, because of the lockdown, the touring has gone mad. So I play in the band of the streets. So like from December we're in rehearsals, and then we've got a whole month of touring from January to February already. So between In the Making and the streets, that's going to take up all my time. I'm sure I'm gonna, I mean, I've got people coming in asking me to do projects already, but I'm just trying to schedule everything and see if I can fit it all in. But yeah, I think next year is going to be, and the year after is going to be crazy. So I don't know. I know I'm definitely going to be touring, and I'm definitely going to be doing the ITM thing, because that is something I'm so passionate about.
For all of us in the world of music, it's amazing to see things reopen up back now, and for there to be bookings and touring back in place and stuff for 2022. It's kind of been a bit of a bleak time where things have just been on pause for a while, hasn't it? So, but now
it's been very bleak. Like there was basically all of this year, I would have been doing a lot of touring, and it all got cancelled. And then I had to sit and rethink and even remodel my business and what I was going to do, which was good because I had more time to think about ITM as well, in a way. So it wasn't good financially, but it was good for being creative and finding new paths.
So great to speak with you, Cass. We will definitely dot back in and catch up about stuff. And yeah, all the best to the guys. Oh, we haven't said who they are. We not announced their names.
So we've got Cara Crosby, we've got Aaliyah Waters, we've got Alfie Neal, and we've got Lons. They're pretty different, so I'm really excited to work with them. Yeah.
Fantastic. Nice one, Cass. You take care. We'll see you soon.
You too. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. And then you're afraid out the back.